Hi, welcome to the Love Fashionably podcast. I'm so excited that you decided to join me on this Monday night. I hope that you are having a great start to your week. I cannot believe that we are already at the end of August here, closing chapter 8 of 12 on 2024. It is crazy to think how fast this year is flying by. I know for me, this month has gone very quickly. I started back to school, as you know, and things are just moving, and I'm having to keep pace, and so the days are flying by for me. But I hope that you're enjoying this last little bit that we have of summer. As you can tell, I'm already in my fall. I'm ready for the fall gear. I know a lot of people are hanging on to summer. If you're in the South, we are getting ready to enter into my favorite season, and you know that there are more than four. We have winter, spring, summer, football, and fall. And here we are, all SEC, all in, starting the end of this week. On Saturday, it kicks off. I know college football has actually started the week before. Don't worry, I watched. I am ready. I love football season, as we talked about a couple weeks ago when Haley was here and kind of interviewing me, and she wanted to talk about how I came to love the game of football. That is something pretty unique, I think, for a girl that loves her pink sparkles and heels. To be as much all in with football, I pride myself in the fact that I can talk it like a boy. But it's just something fun, like I mentioned. It's just kind of a side hobby. It's just something that I've enjoyed. I've gone through seasons where it's been like all in, seasons where I haven't been as focused on it as much. There's always lots of different things. One of my favorite reasons I do love football is when you are really focused on it, it's not necessarily what you see like on the Saturdays or things like that. It's the press conferences that you kind of see behind the scenes. And if you've ever seen one of Coach Saban's press conferences, you've probably seen clips, and there's a lot of funny rants and things that he has said over the years that have made viral. But the things that I've really loved have been the ones where he would talk about discipline and having the right mindset and how to be a champion. And the way that he always would talk, his press conferences were always geared not to us, but to his players. But I always kind of, would take things of that too, because we are playing this game called life, and we have been given a purpose by God that we are supposed to play out and to do it as a champion to the best of our ability. And so having and following some of those tasks can really, can equip you to do what God's calling you to do. And so I've always really appreciated that. And, if you've really paid attention to Alabama football, and I'm going to kind of talk about the Coach Saban eras. We're just entering the new one. Don't worry. I mean, I'm still working on being all in on a new coach. I know he's going to be great, but, that's just old football in me. But we're going to talk. Coach Saban had this thing, and they kept it. It's called the fourth quarter program, and it's something that they do in the off season. So it's not in the middle of their training. It's something they do to prepare for their games. And there are 5 main principles of that. And so I kind of want to talk about each one of those principles and relate it to the Bible and how we can take those same principles into our daily lives to better equip us and to challenge us to do better for what God is calling us to do. So the 4 principles are effort, toughness, commitment, discipline, and pride. I may have done those on the wrong finger if you've seen like the 4 poster, but this is why we hold up 4, for fourth quarter, giving you football knowledge if you're not aware. We're going to start kind of with effort, and really I'm just going to read some scriptures. So these things, and maybe you're going through a season where you need some of this now. This is you need to be putting in more effort into what God's calling you to do, or you need more mental toughness, or you need to recommit a certain area of your life back to God. Or you need more strong discipline. Well, you can jot these down. That's kind of the goal of it. Or if you don't need it now, you might need it in the future. And so you can jot these verses down as some. There's obviously a lot more out there. These are just some of the ones that I found. So I thought they could help us. So effort That's what we're going to start with. So 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, with all this going for us, my dear friends, stand your ground and don't hold back. Throw yourselves into the work of the master, confident that nothing you do for him is a waste of time or effort. In John 6:63, it says, the Spirit alone gives eternal life. Human effort accomplishes nothing. And the very words I have spoken to you are spirit and life. I think a lot of times when we hear effort, we think, well, I better just kind of like pull myself together and do it all by myself and do it in my own strength. And you've probably heard that saying, like, pull your, well, now it just kind of went blank there. Bootstraps. Thank you. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and kind of like give it your best shot and just hope it all works well. But that's really not even what that says in John there in chapter 6. It says human effort accomplishes nothing. So he wants to be partnered in every area of our life, and he wants to be involved, no matter how big or how small. And then in Matthew 19, verse 26, Jesus looked at them intently and said, humanly speaking, it is impossible, but with God, everything is possible. So a lot of the times, even then, like we want to try to use our own efforts and it's not going to work out. But God's saying, let me be involved, because with me, I can help you accomplish anything. And so a lot of the times, the things that we feel that may be in front of us, that we're supposed to accomplish, invite him in to that situation. The next one is toughness. And with this one, it's going to be more not about like strength toughness, but about mental toughness. And so in Proverbs 29:22, it says, an angry person starts fights. A hot-tempered person commits all kinds of sins. Ecclesiastes 7:9, control your temper, for anger labels you a fool. And so, again, when you hear tough, you think kind of strong, hard, quick temper. But there really is like that other channel of like mental toughness that we can build up. And in Proverbs 22:15, he says, young people are prone to foolishness and fads. The cure comes through tough-minded discipline. Tough-mindedness is being strong-minded and being able to control your thoughts, being able to think about what you're thinking about. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, he says, we destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. We capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. We're supposed to, you probably heard that, capture your thoughts. Sometimes I like to kind of put that action with it, like I'm capturing my thought and getting rid of it. We're supposed to be tough-minded, because the devil's going to try to tell you all these lies to try to get you to believe them, so that you won't go and act out and do the purpose and the promise that God has for you. But if we can build up that strength in our mind to withstand and be able to recall the promises of God, and to know that that he's with us and he is for us and he's not against us, and that involve him again in every area, then we're able to withstand the enemy and able to walk into what God has for us. The next one was commitment. In Psalms 37:5, commit everything you do to the Lord, trust him, and he will help you. Proverbs 16:3, commit your actions to the Lord and your plans will succeed. Colossians 3:23, work willingly at whatever you do as though you are working for the Lord rather than for people. And so this one's kind of easy when you're thinking about committed. Being committed to whatever God is asking you to do. Like we said, that may change. There may be like this long purpose that we have, but there's usually little steps to help get us there. He doesn't just take us from the beginning to the end. It's a journey and a process all along the way. So whatever he's asking you to do in the season, he's asking you to be all in committed, whether it's to work a 9-to-5 job when you want to be doing something else, or whether to stay at your job that you want to be, that you want to go somewhere else. But maybe for right now in this season, he's asking you to stay committed. It could be whatever kind of home life, if you will, situation that you're in right now. If God's called you to be single, then be committed, all in single. If you're a husband or a wife, stay-at-home mom, if you are a child living in your parents' home and he's asked you to be, to submit to your parents, then to be all in and to be committed and to be where your feet are. And I think a lot of the times we'll do like about, 25%, 50%. It's hard to go all in, but Jesus was all in to death. He was so committed to us that in John, 3, we know verse 16, but in verse 17, it said God sent his son into the world not to judge the world, but to save us. Jesus came to save us, and he was all in committed. And so why is it so hard for us to commit back to him? The fourth one I think we're on is discipline. This one kind of really goes hand in hand with toughness. Discipline in Proverbs 12:1, to learn you must love discipline. It is stupid to hate correction. Proverbs 1:7, fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. In 1 Corinthians 9:27, I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. And then, of course, the one that you probably thought of when I first said discipline in Hebrews 12:11, no discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. There's probably a lot of definitions for discipline, but I really always loved this discipline and really kind of thought about this a lot when I heard it many years ago when I actually heard Coach Saban kind of define discipline. And he said it's really two different things. Discipline is there's something that you know you need to do, but you don't want to do it. And then there's something that you shouldn't do, but you want to do it. Can you make yourself do what you don't want to do? In other words, can you tell your flesh, so we're made up of body, soul, spirit, our flesh, which likes to kind of do what the world's doing, it's very easily persuaded. Can you tell it to do what the Holy Spirit is asking you to do? Can you submit to that? I think that's such a great, beautiful definition of how we should discipline ourselves, our minds, our bodies, so that we can walk in the fullness that God has for us. The last one is pride. And for this one, I guess there's a couple different ways, but for me, I kind of saw it in the way that we're doing as a bit of a warning for us. In the football area, that's not really how it's used. It's looked more like as, they're taking pride in your performance, which you can do, that you're doing your job to the best of your ability. But I kind of, like I said, I want to take it as a bit of a warning. So in Proverbs 16:18, pride goes before destruction and haughtiness before it fall. In James 4:6, and he gives grace generously. As the scriptures say, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. In Romans 12:3, because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. And I don't remember if I said where that. Romans 12:3, if I didn't. But I kind of wanted to put this last because we were talking about in all those other areas, we were really trying to push ourselves to excel in those moments and to really do well. And again, but that last one, but don't think you're really doing really better than you are. That's what he says in there in Romans 12. Be honest in your evaluation of yourself. So that can kind of go both ways. Well, don't be thinking that you're doing worse than you really are. You may be, out there crushing it at what God's asking you to do. That's great, but there's always still another level, so don't get complacent. So continuing to push. And so I loved that last part, though, that it says, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given. So a lot of the times we want to measure ourselves by what we're feeling in the moment or kind of what's going on around us or what we see. But God says, do it by the faith that I've given you. So faith is not what you see. Faith is what we know and believe in that action that we can put behind it. I kind of just wanted to again, we're going to go back to a little bit of football. This is one of my favorite conversations that I think I ever heard. And it was one where Julio Jones had come back to the university after being gone for several years. And he's talking about his experience in the NFL. And if you don't know who Julio is, he played at Alabama. He was with the Atlanta Falcons. He's been on a couple other teams since. But he was someone that was always very dedicated and had a lot of mental toughness and really kind of pushed himself. He will end up probably being an NFL Hall of Famer just because he pushed himself to be the best version of himself no matter what he saw. And that's what he's talking about here. He's talking about like he went into this one season of life in the NFL and he had been trained to always like be pushing himself and always to try hard and to always remember the little things, and the little things are important just as much as the big things, and always to be pushing himself. But he went into this season of his life to where he sat there and nobody else was really doing this. I mean, he's like looking around and he was like, well, why aren't y'all running? Why aren't you like doing this? Why are you complaining? We get to do this for a living. We get to play something that we love for a living. And he's like kind of talking about it. And, you know, Coach Saban's just kind of go back and forth and they're talking about, and he's like, well, some people just aren't built that way. But you can be. You just have to push yourself. It all goes back to that mental mindset. Like, what do you think as important? Do you think that the purpose that God has given you in this moment is important? Do you think that, you know, the plans that he has for you really are great and mighty? Or do you think, well, he may have that, but for someone else? That may go back to that mental toughness, to think that you're letting a lie from the enemy kind of sneak in and blind you in that moment. Because God really does have great plans and great purposes, and he wants us to go all in for him. And so I hope those verses were a bit encouraging to you, and it kind of made sense. I just thought it would be something a little fun and a little different for the kickoff of football season, which is something that I really love and I'll be paying close attention to this fall. So you may be hearing some little football moments in here and there as our season goes along. But I did want to kind of end with this one little quote from Coach Saban. And he says, everybody has some chance, some opportunity to change and improve, but not everybody takes advantage. Be somebody who does. That's the mentality champions have. And like I said, God has called us to champion our life and our purpose, and he has a great plan for each of us. And so I hope that if you don't know what that is, that you'll take the time to ask him. I can't help you with that. People around you may be able to help steer you, but really, if you want to know what God has for you, ask him. He'll be ecstatic to talk to you and tell you. And it's probably not going to start, he's not going to lay out the whole 12-step plan to the program. Like, this is how it's going to be. It's just going to take steps of obedience to get there. So I hope that you got a little something from it. Thanks for indulging me in my football time. Have a great rest of your Monday night, and we'll see you again next Monday here at Love Fashionably. Bye.